What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Praise Podcast. My name is Eric Lade. I am the host of the Praise Podcast, but I don't do this alone. No. I am joined by the one, the only, the Brooke Paninsky. She is the co-host above all other co-hosts, and it is our pleasure to start another year, a new year of Praise Podcast episode 2024, Brooke. It is 2024. Can you believe it?
Yes, I can. The years go by fast.
The years go by fast.
Time
it
for a new one.
Seems like not that long ago we were just hanging out in a ministry building not far from here.
Actually, a mile away. It's fine.
It felt
like
a long walk. But not so far away. And the Praise Podcast was born. And now, 3 years later, here we are. We are so excited that you have chosen to hang out with us today and to be a part of the Praise Podcast family. What does it look like, Brooke, to be a part of the Praise Podcast family, you ask? You say, what does that mean? You say that, but I don't know what it means. Here's what it means, Brooke. It means that, one, you take part in the conversation. How do you do that, you ask? Well, you send us emails at brooke@centralnow.com or eric@centralnow.com. But, I mean, being a part of the conversation, that's not probably enough, is it, Brooke? Right? We want more from our people.
I guess not, yeah.
We want more.
We want more.
So what would else really qualify you to be a part of this Praise Podcast family? Well, you could leave a rating and a review. That helps this podcast get seen by more people, which helps more people join the Praise Podcast family. You know what that means? That means more emails, more ratings and reviews.
I love emails. I love ratings and reviews.
It's all,
especially the nice ones.
It's all a part of the process. All
That's
right.
really great.
And so that's what it looks like. If you want to be a part of this, which you do, you do, because you have chosen to listen to this podcast. So we are super grateful for all of you that are part. You do send those emails, you do leave ratings, you do leave reviews, and we just really appreciate it. We're looking forward to another exciting year of Praise Podcast episodes. Brooke,
hey,
how was, I know we got to celebrate Christmas with everybody.
Yeah.
Last episode, we looked back at 2023. And somebody, actually, we need to mention this before we go on.
Okay.
So one of our Praise Podcast family, our faithful listeners, Trent said, he said, I am really surprised that bonbons didn't make your top of 2023. And honestly, I don't know how I forgot that.
Well, I guess
our eyes were open.
on more of yeah, you're right. Because it's memories. That's like a memory, like a fun podcast memory.
Yeah.
For sure. Or not even memory. It still happens. We love it.
Yes.
But I guess in that conversation for sure, just thinking about events in particularly. But yeah, that's funny that Trent would mention that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that was a standout for Trent.
Yeah. Well, and just, my eye, our eyes.
It's wow, yeah.
I tried a lot of new things last year.
Mm-hmm.
Claus and pickles.
You're welcome.
And
you don't buy another kind of pickle, do you?
I don't.
Exactly.
And bonbons. Those are the whole new world there.
Yeah.
What else? There was something else. Oh yeah, potato bread.
Oh yeah.
My
potato bread.
My eyes were open to potato bread.
Yeah.
And
I also
was there anything else?
No, but I will
food-wise?
tell you, I even made a point to look and research to find, because I can still see what the potato, the sack of the potato bread, hold on, the what am I trying to say? I know what it looked like, not just the bread, but the packaging. And I remember it would sit in a big glass bowl in my granny's kitchen island. And there would be Granny Smith green apples underneath it. And she would just put her apples and put her bread on top of there. And very unorganized, but we don't ask questions or question Granny for sure. But I remember it vividly, and I cannot even find a picture of it on Google to show you the, this is what I'm talking about. This is what it looked like when I was a little kid. But yeah, anyway, side note, I wanted to do extensive research to kind of bring you in on that as much as I could, but it was impossible to do.
I know the other thing. Tangerines.
Tangerines. No, you're wrong. Nectarines.
Nectarines.
But that was the conversation.
Yeah, nectarines. Man.
Yeah.
2023 was the year of new random foods.
New foods. But would you expect anything less?
That's true. That's what
from the two of us.
That's really what we're about.
That's so funny.
So who knows what
Great.
2024 will hold? But yes, Trent. I saw him the other day,
That's
and he was
awesome.
like, "How?" And I was like, "You know what, Trent? You're so right.
Mm-hmm.
That's
a great one.
We missed that.
Yeah,
we missed it. All right, Brooke.
What's up?
You know what we do first.
Yep, sure
we
do.
We do Song Spotlight.
Sure do.
If you don't know what Song Spotlight is, that probably means you're new to listening. So, again,
way
welcome.
to call them out.
And if you do know Song Spotlight, then
welcome back.
Need a reminder. Welcome back. It's basically, this is what Brooke and I have been listening to. That's been on replay a whole lot in our phones, cars, whatever, however you listen to music. This is something that, a song that we think you should be listening to. So, Brooke.
Yeah.
Give your first official 2024 Song Spotlight.
Okay, well, I was going to give a really questionable one, but since it's the first official
like
offensively
one, questionable or like appropriate questionable? Or like... Oh, she's thinking about it. It was. We're gonna have to bring out the buzzer, the beeper.
It's okay. I'm not gonna. I don't. It's part of me now. It's like if I don't, everybody's gonna be like the emails I get.
Like,
what song are you talking about?
Yeah.
But it's like not even that great of a song. It's just like the very first like 25 seconds is super catchy and it's stuck in my head.
Yeah.
But like the song in its entirety is not like
now I'm
raving.
As well, so.
But it's like. I don't know. Should I?
Yeah, you should.
I'd have to find it. But can I tell you my one that's actually worth noting?
Yeah, just do that one, but then we're definitely doing the one that's
okay.
People are gonna people's opinions will change of you, which is why we're gonna do it.
Okay, I'm sure. That's a really strong place to start. Okay, so the one I'm gonna pick that is worth mentioning to you because it's worth actually listening to for you to spend your time searching. But it is the Good Plans Doxology by Red Rocks. We did that for Praise Party, and I love when Noah leads Good Plans. And then I love Elder Nate. So then like at Praise Party, both Noah and Elder Nate just like crushed it. Like, well, I don't even know if Nate sang that song at Praise Party or if Noah did, but he sang it that weekend.
Yeah.
And it all was one large service in my mind because we didn't sleep for 4 days. Yeah. And so anyways, but yeah, just like Noah led that at Praise Party and then Nate led that, just the regular version of Good Plans that same weekend. And so, we got to lead that a chunk of, a handful of times. And it just, I don't know, it was really good. I just love that song. Yeah. And I love the doxology take on it. It was really cool. Really powerful.
Yep, it's a good one. That is a good one.
I recommend that.
For sure.
That one is worth listening to.
Do you want me to go do mine and then we'll come back to your other one?
It doesn't matter. Whatever you think is...
We'll do another godly one and then we'll come back to
End with a bang.
Your filth. That's what we'll come back with.
It's not filth. It's a Christian song. It's just not very good.
Oh. Well, that takes a little bit of the fun out of it.
Okay, what's your
now
song?
Now I look like the bad guy because I'm calling some Christian song filth.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Mine is, so one of my 2024 goals on Song Spotlights is to give the people some names that maybe they haven't heard of before. So instead of, like, if you're listening to Christian radio or,
we know how you feel about Christian radio.
Well, I know, but I'm saying like top chart people, all that. Like everybody knows the names.
Sure, like your Brandons.
Everybody knows the people, which those guys are great.
They
love
are
them.
Great.
Glad that they're doing
Christian
what they're
radio is
doing.
great.
But so these will be some. I'm going to do my best to give some people.
That's a big goal. I like that goal.
Some names that maybe they don't know.
Sure. Okay.
So
I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
For my first one, this is not a new song. This is old. I mean, it's not old. It's 2019, so it's not like it's that old, but it's it's not yesterday.
What? Do you remember that song? Noah was like, "Oh yeah, it's a classic," and John's like, "It came out like 2 years
Every
ago."
Victory. Danny Goki. Yeah, the song's 2 years old.
And Noah's like, "Wow, classic."
Yeah, what a classic.
John was so upset. Sorry.
All right, so this is by the Lowly Heirs. The Lowly Heirs.
No, you were both onto a really strong start.
The lowly heirs.
Okay.
Like you're the heir of something, you know.
Yeah, lowly being the adjective to describe
that H really threw me off.
It wasn't
there.
the H, it was the vowels that followed the H that confused you.
I didn't say that these people had the best band names. I just said that you probably haven't heard of them.
And which could be why, but
the Lowly Heirs. Heirs. Okay? And the song is If It Wasn't for the Cross.
No, that's good. What's it about? The cross.
I'm gonna use some context clues. And I'm gonna say, yeah, it's got a pretty strong cross link.
Oh, as it should.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, it's called If It Wasn't for the Cross. Let me see if I can find. Hold on. Let me find some lyrics for you.
Yeah, I've never heard of them or that song. I don't think. Or is it one of the ones like if you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, I know that song. Or you really like? No, you probably never heard of it.
Nope.
How did you stumble across it?
It just came up. Like as like stuff
like something you might like
like
like on iTunes.
Yeah, like when you
Spotify
listen to one song, but like it's not a part of an album, so then they just feed you something else to see if you like it.
Which I like when they do that. Makes for great new discoveries. Exhibit A.
Yeah, let's see here. How do I find right there? Here we go. It's pulling up. All right, so it says, "Thank you for the blood you gave for me, the Savior sacrificed upon the tree. With every curse that pierced your hands and feet, my stained and sinful heart would be made clean. If it wasn't for the cross, the curse would not be broken. If it wasn't for the cross, the grave would not be open. But now, because of love, I can stand forgiven. Thank you for the cross. Thank you for the cross." And it goes on. But yeah, it's a good, especially as we move closer and closer to Easter.
Yeah,
so it's an Easter song.
Yeah, so, that's cool.
The Lowly Heirs.
Very nice.
If It Wasn't for the Cross.
Yeah.
There you go.
Good. So
check them out. I honestly couldn't tell you if they're still making music, but they might not be.
Yeah.
But
well, speaking of, people and bands, musicians that you've probably never heard of, that is the reason why this song probably isn't worth looking up. But it's catchy, and maybe if we somehow have the same kind of Instagram reels, it might have come up. And whatever, but I think their band is called Strings and Heart, I think is what it is called. But the song Flowers Dressed in Blue is what it's called. And it's like the very beginning is the only part that I actually really like.
Play it real quick.
Because it's
okay.
Here,
just put it into your microphone.
Okay.
Let's do this.
You guys
super,
ready?
super.
And then we have to delete this episode off of
super
iTunes.
Poorly.
Okay, here. Hold on. Let's see.
Oh, this is like some emo, I can see why you would be drawn to that. Yeah, we probably should pull it off. We're going to get flagged.
Really?
I don't know.
No, hold on. It's like the very first line is the only reason why I like it. Here, I'm going to just keep playing it. If we had to delete it, it wouldn't be the first time we've had to delete an episode. Here, hold on. You guys ready?
Who is this?
Here it is. Ready?
I see flowers dressed in blue, painted pink skies, proof enough it's you.
Wow.
That's it. That's the whole reason I like the song.
That is you. When I think of that's.
If you know
it's
me,
not bad.
If you know me.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all.
But you know what's also wild?
That channeled some feelings for you, probably.
It's just like. It is, it is. There's just a taste of that just it hits my fancy. But we were it was on Instagram, and I came it was just.
Are they a Christian band?
Yeah, they're a Christian band, and one of their songs is called I think it's called Secret Place maybe or something like that. And I was like, that also intrigued me about them. So, anyways, but yeah, and you remember we talked about forever ago when I went to the Jonas Brothers, and we were talking. I don't know if we were talking about it on the podcast, but we were talking about it and about how we forget how short regular songs are on albums that aren't Christian albums, and that's one of those songs. I listened to it all the way through. And it was only that one. So then, it would loop the song on my iTunes. And so it looped the song. And then the beginning, of course, came back. So then in my brain, I'm thinking, like you call it a good old instrumental bookend or whatever. And I'm just like, wait a minute. It just started over. It was very short. But anyways, so that's
Wow.
that. Good
What
talk.
a song spotlight to start 2024.
I know. Actually, really wasn't that bad.
No.
It's a solid song spotlight.
I thought it was going to be much different than what you.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm.
I thought it was going to be. Never mind. That was different than what I was anticipating.
It wasn't as bad as you were anticipating.
No, I was hoping that was going to be something.
But that is people who really actually know me, like, know there's like for sure a sweet spot in my spirit for
it doesn't surprise me
the
at all
boy
that
bands.
it doesn't surprise me at all, especially when that guy started singing. I can picture he probably has like blonde hair, whatever, and just I don't know. Yeah.
That's so
it's
funny.
It's curly for sure.
Yeah, and it's just the sound of boy bands. Let's clarify.
Yeah.
It's not Brooke was never like whatever that way, but I was like, it's just the sound. I don't know. I just growing up, that was always the sound for me. And it's so funny. I'm 30 and then saw that on Instagram. I'm like, wow, why does this strike me? Yeah. It just does. So anyways,
I get it.
But yeah, maybe my kids will grow up and Bryce and Matthew will somehow and Nolan somehow be, you
never know,
musically inclined
Wouldn't
enough to start a boy band.
Wouldn't that be
to
something?
Sing songs about the Lord.
Mom would be so proud in her
I
garage.
would be so proud. Yeah, it was cool. But speaking of paving the way with great music.
Yeah.
You know what we get to talk about today, Eric?
What do we get to talk about today, Brooke?
We get to talk about leadership.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Yeah. So I feel like the last chunk of our podcast episodes and per the Holiday Crazy, we kind of like, you just talk about, they've just been perfectly laid out and like almost like you have to talk about certain things because of the time of year that it is, And so this is like the first time we get to have an episode in a few weeks that's like, we can just talk about whatever we want, And so we, per usual, never really talk about this beforehand, and nor do we ever really know exactly what we're going to talk about until we sit down and start to record.
Like, I truly have no idea what we're about to talk about, other than that it's about leadership.
Yeah.
And then I said, can you give me more? It's a broad topic. She goes, I don't know. What was the phrase you used? The mantle of leadership. I go, boy, that really nailed it down. That really brought it in. Thank you for narrowing that.
You just stared at me as if I'd say more. I was like, what else do you want me to say about it? And he's like, maybe like something more descriptive.
We'll figure it out, I guess.
Yeah, it's good. So I love these conversations because they're conversations that are unfiltered and they're unscripted and they really are just conversations that Eric and I would have with each other and like just so obviously like, what are you learning? Where are you at? What thoughts do you have? I mean, that's what you do. And this is a conversation that I'm excited to have with our listeners because it's something that I feel in the season that I'm in right now and where the Lord has me and the things that he's teaching me. I feel really passionate about talking about it, and not because I have it figured out, but because that's what I'm learning about. And so as the Lord just reveals things, or I read something, or I don't know, there's just another way that he just reveals something to you. I mean, to me, it just excites me and I want to have a conversation about it. So I definitely don't start this conversation as to be in a position of like, I know all this stuff about leadership and I'm going to educate our listeners. That's not it at all. What I'm telling you is that I'm excited to let the Lord show me and teach me more things about what it means to be a godly leader and what it means to be someone who carries the mantle, who has the mantle of leadership in a spiritual sense right now for the kingdom of God and the capital C church. So if you're listening to this and you are a leader, whether it be by title or by personality trait, this is so cool because I think the Lord really has a call for his children who are leaders and who have that gift to really steward it well. So Eric and I were talking about, with it being, still the top of the year, obviously, 2024, it's the perfect time to talk about and reflect on just how we handled the year before and what we want to change or what we want to do differently, right, to have just a better improved year ahead of us. And so as a leader, I think it's important for us to take time to have those moments to have those conversations with our trusted friends, to have those conversations with the Lord in prayer, and just sit there and say, okay, God, looking at where I was this last year and looking at where I'm now going this year, what do you want to teach me and how can I be better, especially in this topic as a leader? And so I'm excited to just, again, why I love this podcast is it's just a conversation. I'm so excited to like share like what I'm doing right now and what the Lord has kind of what he spoke to me and kind of what I've grasped onto as I like charge through this year. So okay, 2 parts. Towards the end of last year, as you know, the talk of the new year's coming, of course, I then start to think about, okay, like New Year resolutions, or what's your word of the year, what's your prayer for the year, all these things. And I was not anticipating nor asking for this part, which is somehow, and because the Lord is kind, and he is the best teacher, what he told me is what led to this conversation right now and what I've been absorbing. So I'm sitting there and I'm asking God, okay, so what can I do better and what can I, improve on, or what could be a goal or two for me in this next year in ministry or as a wife or as a mom and all these things. And the Lord asked me what I was for. And so I just kind of was taken back by that because it wasn't really the response that I was anticipating, and I sat on that for a second, and he really just pressed upon my spirit, my heart. He just said, what are you for? And so I'm like, well, what do you mean? What am I for? And, it just started to show me, like, when you know someone, when you learn about someone, when you meet someone for the first time, or even you just hear about someone's reputation, or, you've not even met them, you know what I mean? Like, you've not even met them yet, but you know that you already know X, Y, and Z about them, but you don't really actually know them. You know what I mean? And so that's what he began to show me. And he said, what do people know you for? And he's like, I'm not talking about the position that you have in ministry. I'm not talking about the testimony you have with your children. I'm not talking about the walk you've walked with your spouse. I'm asking you, what do people know you by because of what you are for? And I thought, well, Lord, I'm for you. Like, don't you think people know that? And he said, well, of course they know that. Almost just waiting for me to catch on to what he was trying to say. And long story short, get to a position where the 3 things that the Lord kind of revealed to me, in a sense of, to make sure that I'm, conscious about, or that I'm aware enough and carry with me to work towards or work on or whatever. There are 3 things that the Lord helped me to helped show me, to be for. And he said, you are for unity, you are for honoring, and you are for productive conversations. And I was like, well, that's great. Okay, but I thought, wow, God, like, I know you have more to say on this as the days go on, the weeks go on, the months go on for this year. But I know he highlighted those 3 things to me on purpose. He says, you are for unity, you are for honoring, and you are for productive conversation. So then a few weeks go by, and per his leading and just a series of events, I enrolled in a mentorship program, and we've only had 1 class so far, but it was stellar, and it's all on leadership, and of course from a godly perspective, and it's master level classes, but like presented to you by or in a way that's just like easy to retain and quick to retain. It's almost like your SparkNote version, but still solid food, right? But yeah, and so in this leadership class, so I've already got this word on my heart, and then the first session of my leadership class comes a few weeks after that, and one of the main things that she talked about right out of the gate was the mantle of leadership over our lives, if the Lord sees fit. You know what I mean? Not everybody, we talk about that all the time. We all have different roles, responsibilities, and all different parts of the body. But for those that he has made and called and appointed and anointed to be leaders of the kingdom and of the church, whether it be under a roof of a church, but more so and more importantly, mostly for the capital C church, the global church, for his kingdom, it's time for us to kind of I guess, claim that and understand that, and then use that in the way that honors him the most. And that can be the most efficient, productive, encouraging, building up. You know what I'm trying to say? Just like we need to take responsibility for our call as a leader, and we need to take it seriously. So I'm excited. I think this topic will be productive for people, or beneficial, and I think it could challenge people, and it could. My prayer is that it sparks something in someone's spirit who the Lord has called to be a leader, but who doesn't really believe that. I think that's what I see and what I pray can happen, is that not only can it encourage and challenge those who already identify and receive that call as a leader, but that it calls up and encourages and champions those who are leaders but don't yet have the confidence to claim and walk in the authority of the leader, or of a leader, as a leader that the Lord has called them to be. So anyways, that's where I'm at. That's how we got to this conversation. Does that help? Yes or no?
That feels
still really broad.
No, that feels like a much greater explanation.
That's funny.
Great. As to where we're going.
Okay.
Where we're going. Yeah, I'm with you.
You with me? You trekking?
I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm trekking.
Tracking.
Airs.
Whatever.
Yeah.
We're not professionals. That's the best part about it. So do you want anything to say? Or you want to dive in, or what do you want to do?
Well,
Highlights,
I think,
all things.
Not that this is like an interview, but necessarily like why. I guess question. You said unity.
Yeah.
Honor.
Yeah.
And
productive
conversations. So
yes.
As I guess from a leadership context, like why do you think that those were the three things that he gave you, like those specific words,
sure,
phrases?
That's a great question. Yeah.
What do you think's behind that?
Well, part of the fun is I don't know yet. But part of the fun is that he gives you little breadcrumbs, right?
Potato breadcrumbs.
And potato breadcrumbs, that's right. But come on, what good leader is not for unity?
Mm.
What good Christian, you know what I mean? Is not honoring and for, to people in general, with their actions or with their mouth, and then you just think
the Bible is pretty clear.
Yeah, these are really good places to land.
Paul's pretty specific in Ephesians on the whole unity thing.
He is, yeah. But then, of course, productive conversation. And I love there a few weeks, depending on when this podcast goes out, I don't know how long ago, but John's sermon that he started the year off with was really cool because he talked about it for a second, just about, and I think he used a passage in Matthew, but literally even in conversations and gossip and slander or whatever, and even the call to we're supposed, if something's going down, we're supposed to be going to that person directly. We're not supposed to be having all these sidebar conversations with people that aren't really a part of the issue. And it just, these are biblical principles that didn't come from the top 10 pastors of our time right now. This is in the Word of God. These are expectations that we are called to live by. And the best part is, whether you are a leader or see yourself as a leader or not, this is if you are a disciple, if you are a follower of God, you are called to operate from this posture. And there's so much to learn, I think, about unity and honor and productive conversation. But for right now, and for this, I guess for me, with this as maybe just my job here at the church, even, it's just okay, even as a leader in this building that I've put you in, how can these things be beneficial to not only the people that you lead, but the people who are also leading you? I'm not the top of, what I'm saying? I'm worship staff. You look at my title and it's what are her responsibilities? Who is she really actually leading or whatever? And it's just you know what? About 10,000 people every weekend who know my life and who know my story. It has nothing to do with the title. I could say the same thing to every volunteer that comes across our department or any department in this church or a church. And it's you don't have whatever title. And so you think that exemplify, or how do I say, like, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but like you think that then all of a sudden you're exempt from being a leader. And that's not true. And nor is it biblical. And so, just I think the way that I am for the unity of, from the position of like, I work at Central, right? Like, I think if I'm for unity, like, what does that, I mean, of course, that's only going to help, like, in a season we're about to have a lot of tension and change and transition, and you just never know what's coming. We've never walked this before, and it's like, well, then we better be as strong as we can be in the core, right? And so how does that happen? What happens when we're unified, when we're one team going forward ahead of the charge, like for a move of God and out of obedience to this call he's given? So it's like, okay, like, boom, check. Like, when people know Brooke, I want people to know that Brooke is one who's for unity. And same with honor. Like I said, I lead others? Yes. Okay. Is it my position on staff? No. But I'm like, but you know what? I have enough people above me who are, we say my covering or my in leadership, or, that I'm accountable to, or whatever. And it's just like my job to honor them. Like, and like, that's so important as well. You know what I mean? Like, to honor my leaders and honor my pastors. And, that's a whole word. And then of course, productive conversation. Like, and there's nothing more productive than when conversations happen that are clear and that are intentional, right? So things get done when conversations are clear. Things get done, things happen, like, or things are squelched, right? Like, things that might cause trouble or are stirring up or that are not from the Lord or not, how we should be talking or whatever, they get squelched when conversations are clear and intentional and productive. And again, like, if that conversation, depending on what it's for, it's just like, okay, like, I want to be mindful with like the outcome of our conversation here, whether it's difficult or whether it's encouraging. Like, I want to be intentional that it's at least productive. So yeah, I mean, those are, I think, as like a staff member, leading or whatever, like, I think those are for sure really good qualities that we need to figure out how to steward well and operate in. And plus, the accountability it gives me saying these things out loud is required. Like, I can't just hold that word in my heart and then keep it there and not tell you about it, or whoever's listening to this podcast about it, or my friends about whatever. And it's like, because then if I'm caught in a conversation where I'm not being, if I'm not unifying, if I'm not honoring with the words that I'm saying or the actions I'm having, or if I'm in a conversation that is not godly, so it's not productive or productive, it's like, then I want the accountability to be like, what are you for? And I want that reminder of, okay, like, let me self-reflect here. And is this all these things that I'm striving to get better at, or is it not? So anyways, if that answers your question in a very long roundabout way, there you go.
Yeah. No, I think I would go as far as to say those three things would be, those would be maybe probably not the only, but definitely three pillars of leadership, you might say.
I mean, for sure. Wow.
And
yeah.
I would say without a belief or understanding of, or if you weren't for those things, then I would say you're probably not a leader, or you're not the leader that God has asked you to be, or you're leading something that you don't really want to be leading. And so I think that those, I mean, I'm not surprised that those would be three words that would be important, because, I mean, I think if you don't have those three things, then how can you lead, And so, yeah, I think those are all great.
Cool. Glad you approve.
Yeah. Me and God are on the same page.
You and God are on the same page. Yeah, there you go.
No, I was thinking, like, even just with the unity thing, like Paul, Romans 12:18, do all that you can to live in peace with everyone. Some translations will say like as much as it depends on you, you know.
Yes.
And which I
Come on now.
I mean I like that way of phrasing that because like it's all a choice. You know, like we have the choice. We make the choice to whether we want to create unity or cause disunity. And so that was just a verse as you were talking on that popped in my head.
Yeah.
In that, and then I think it's in. I mean, he says a very similar thing in, I think in Ephesians too. You know, just that like the importance of unity, that you do everything within your power to be unified.
Yeah, well, and I love it too because in this leadership course I'm in, one of the things that she was talking about was like to be leaders who are for reconciliation. Like we have the heart posture to want to reconcile, which if you want to reconcile, in my mind, it's like, well, then we're people of repentance and forgiveness, you know? I mean, and that's a whole other layer of things that that's a whole other layer of things that we can't even fathom until we've dealt with. Drum roll, please.
That sounded more like a machine gun. Sorry.
It did. It's okay. Same effect. But our pride.
Yeah.
Pride is seriously, I mean, it defiles many. And, I mean, like I just get so mad at the enemy because he really does use pride to do a lot of damage in a lot of ways and in a lot of layers in us. And so when we deal with our pride, first and foremost, and then because that's a root of a lot of this is pride. And anyways, so I almost I feel like I want to tell a story, but okay, I will, because it's again honest. So one of the questions that we were given a list of things, and there was a word that came up that kind of struck my spirit as if like, okay, maybe I need to deal with that, but like why? Because that was the activity was, here's a list of all these things. Like if you are, you know, operating in any of these things, like you need to deal with it, you know, get your crap together, because if not, it's bleeding out on your people, right? And so the word that lit up my spirit was rebellion. And I was kind of taken back by that because I really don't feel like I'm a rebellious person. And she then challenged us. She's like, okay, now ask the Lord, why that one or why whatever. And so I was like, sat there and I just was like, okay. It was just so funny. And I said, all right, Lord. I said, why do you want my attention regarding the word rebellious? And it was just funny. I'm like literally having like this interaction with him. And I said, I'm not even rebellious and whatever. So I'm asking him, I said, so what's the deal with that? And I hear him say, it's your pride. And I snapped my head around so fast as if he was in the room. I said, my pride? What are you talking about? You know, like sometimes, you know, I'm literally like, what pride issues do I have right now? Like, did I not deal with that? You know what I mean? Like, am I not conscious enough of that? And I just thought in that moment, like how funny that in God's kindness, he's like, deal with this because ultimately it's a pride issue. And I'm so prideful, I didn't even know how to pride issue. You know what I mean? Or I'm so prideful, I was blind to this rebellious nature that maybe I'm operating in right now. That's causing me to like, you know, buck up at like things going on in my life or whatever. And so it just was interesting. And I was talking to Maria about that, again, accountability and just laying it all out there, being honest where I'm at, what's going on. And she said, well, someone once told her that we can always, she goes, if you're someone who can always identify the pride in somebody else, it's because you know it all too well in yourself. Or something along those lines. But it's just like, wow. Because I'm like, there's situations where, I mean, like, I'm quick to identify pride as like an issue going on with somebody else or, you know, with situations going on or whatever. But it's just like, here I am then asking the Lord, what's the deal with, you know, this rebellious nature I have? And he says pride. And I say, what are you talking about to the Lord? I said, what do you mean? I'm like, okay, so it's pride, right? And so it's like, we have got to, I say all of that to say, like as leaders, like we have got to be self-reflecting. We have to always be self-reflecting because if we're not in a position to like keep learning or be in a position to receive some correction or like be in a position that opens us up to like some molding and refinement, like it's going to be very dangerous for us to be a leader who refuses to believe that they need to self-reflect to deal with some things that they've got going on in their flesh, right? So anyways, I think that's just kind of a word of encouragement too, like that I received and that I want to, pass it on to everybody listening. It's just like, when's the last time you really like had to sit and self-reflect on like, okay, I think I'm doing good, but like point out any wicked way in me, but mean it, So yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. That was a good word.
Well, I think too it goes with this idea of it's hard to lead something that you like. I feel like to lead sometimes is simply to just believe in something bigger than yourself. Like, it's a buy-in, and I think like you're saying, that's a pride. There's a pride element to that. But I mean, obviously, I think Paul is a great example of that. Of a guy that really went from two totally different perspectives, really, but ultimately he kind of put his knowledge base aside and just began to believe in something that was bigger than himself, and that's really what obviously he had quite the impactful encounter with the Lord, which obviously helped, but at the end of the day, he made the choice to believe in something that was bigger than him.
Yeah. So come on, let's echo that. He had an encounter with the living God, and we have to. I always hesitate because part of me, every time I'm like, as leaders, as Christians, as people, like I feel like it just applies. Anyways, but it's just like we have got to be in close relationship with the Holy Spirit. We have to. I love, John spoke on this a couple months ago, but I love the picture that it painted. But literally, like, the Lord himself left us the Holy Spirit for a reason. And so it's like we're disobedient then, if we're not calling on and leaning in and really like growing in relationship with the Holy Spirit, like to help guide us, to help counsel us, to, really, when you talk about decisions that need to be made or steps that need to be taken or whatever, like there are, especially in the realm of leadership, there are positions that you find yourself in that literally you're like, I don't know what to do here. I need wisdom from heaven and I need it now, right? And like, if we're not in close relationship to the Lord, to the Holy Spirit, like, will we recognize, that still small voice when he tries to teach us something, right? And I was listening to a podcast today for my kids. They were listening to it on their way home from school, and it's like a 10 to 15 minute devo. And but even in this kids podcast, I'm like, wow, that's a word. But like even in the garden, and when Adam and Eve were told not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? And there's this element of the conversation that it makes me curious because it wasn't about the fruit, but the point of it almost was like we want to know better than God, or we think we know better than God, or like we want to like be the ones in charge to say so or whatever. And it's just like there's a humbling when it's like, okay, what did God say? Right? Because that's what this, what we read about, and even it's teaching the kids. The snake said, like the serpent said, did God really say that? What? Like that, but that's the point. Like in that situation in the beginning, and when the fall of man, the question was, but did God really say that? And so you're in a position to decide, like, I'm going to be obedient here and just believe that even though, despite all else, whatever, I'm going to cling to what I know God said, versus I'm going to start questioning it, and I'm going to allow doubt to come in and infiltrate my mind to then make myself make sense of making this decision, even though it possibly might be disobedient. The confusion comes in, the doubt comes in. Oh, the fall of man, that's how the story starts. And it all comes down to, what did God really say? And so then in leadership, And if we're not spending intimate time with the Father, we will not know or recognize his voice enough, no matter how loud it roars or how quiet it whispers. We won't recognize him when he speaks. When we're in positions as leaders, when things are really tense and really difficult, and we're asking God, what do I do here? Give me wisdom. And he speaks and we don't recognize it. And then we sit on it and we say, well, did you really say that? Did you really say that? And so in a situation, here I am, the Lord's trying to deal with me in my pride. And then he literally tells me, Brooke, it's your pride. And I say, what? Did you really say that? Do you really mean that? And he's like, of course I did. And I'm thinking, of course I heard him speak. I know his voice, right? And so that's such a huge, I think, to summarize this thought or train of conversation of just like, it is so important to spend time with the Father, to be in close relationship with him, because when you do that, you're able to recognize his voice and know that he said what he said and he really meant it. And then when you do that, you're able to continually renew your mind, especially regarding spiritual truths. That's absolutely required of us if we're going to have any kind of success as a leader.
It's good stuff.
You're just twirling your beard.
I'm just listening. I'm just learning something. I'm just taking it all in.
That's funny.
No,
yeah. I mean, it just radically changes your thinking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it has to.
Yep.
The way you process all that, and the way you view it, and the way you let the Lord change your mind about something, or the way you let him shift your perspective on something. I mean, and it can happen in a moment. And I've experienced that just in the last few weeks. It really is a radical change of thinking.
Yeah. Well, I think we like to ask the question, did you really say that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we especially in leadership, we like to ask the question, did you really put me here?
Oh, yeah.
And and I think that is a lot of times it's either, one, we either ask that question because we don't feel qualified, or two, we ask that question because we want more. We're not satisfied with, or we're not content, or we don't like where we've been put. And, especially with the, you're talking about honoring and all the other stuff, I just think it is, again, it's biblical that, if you can't steward and manage what God gives you, then why would he give you more?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think a lot of times, not only are we asking, did you really say that? But then we're asking, is this all you really have?
Mm.
This isn't it.
Mm.
This isn't big enough. I want to do this. I see what this person's doing, and I want that.
Mm-hmm.
I want this platform.
Come on now.
I want that. And it's and God's like, no, you're where you can, you're at where you can handle. And honestly, you're probably not handling that. If you're stuck there or you've been there.
Well, then that lack of contentment.
Yeah.
Right? The discontentment, right? That's a
word.
word.
And a lot of times that comes with the lack of being able to honor who's above you.
And you know where that comes from?
Pride.
I could just, it's a game I could play. I could just trace back any kind of yucky thing of my flesh or whatever, any kind of sin. And it's so much of it. This is not scriptural. I'm no theologist, but I literally feel like so much of it can be stemmed back to pride. And then you think, well, I guess that's what happened to Lucifer and Adam and Eve. It was all pride.
Mm-hmm.
Again, from the fall of man to, what would you say, the fall of, would you call him one of God's most trusted? I don't know how you'd word that, but he was it. He was what I would say, the wingman.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was pride. It was pride. And I think that's a word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I think, think of Nehemiah.
Oh.
I think Nehemiah is a great example of, just build on what God gave you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nehemiah built walls solely on just faithfulness. Mm-hmm. Nothing else. He didn't have quality. He didn't even really want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
But he built walls on faithfulness alone, and God increased. he started out as a cupbearer for a king. Like he wasn't anything special, you know, but like because of his faithfulness and because he built on what he had, he went from a cupbearer to the king to rebuilding walls
Okay.
that we now talk about today.
Exactly. Okay, this is a really important word too. And when I don't know if I said this or not, but Alex Seeley is the teacher. She's the pastor who is over the classes that I'm in. And when she's saying like, so she told this, painted this picture for us, but she just did it so purely that I'm like, I've never heard that, and I love that. And she said, she was talking about David and how basically, like, when it came time to appoint a new king, David wasn't even invited to the conversation. He wasn't even anywhere near the palace, right? Like he was out in a field doing the job the Lord had called him to do. He was stewarding what he was asked to steward. He was in a field as a shepherd boy, minding his business, and then it's hidden, is what Alex said. Like, just hidden away. Like, who would come and find him? Who would come and think when you've got this conversation happening on the other side of all these maybe people, or you know, he's not even on their radar, right? But what was so cool is God anointed and appointed David as king. David didn't have to go and strive for kingship. He didn't have to strive to carry that mantle of leadership. The Lord entrusted him with it, and that he went out and had, you know what I'm saying? Like, David was hidden in a field doing what he was supposed to be doing. And when this time really did come, like, the Lord saw fit and saw to it to then appoint, you know what I'm saying? And worked all that out. Like, I'm doing a poor job telling that story, but you get it. Like, you as a leader, you don't have to strive to be in these rooms or conversations or to have these titles or to find promotion or to find the pay raise or whatever. And it's just like, it's not going to matter unless your elevation comes from the Lord. And you're not going to get an elevation from the Lord if you're not going to be a humble, trustworthy steward of where he's placed you and what he's put you in charge of. And yeah, I just thought that what a powerful illustration, and what a relief for us that, like, I mean, hey, I'm like, I don't want any leadership because it's hard, but I'm also like, but I know you've gifted me in that, and just because I don't enjoy the weight of that sometimes, I want to honor you with it, if that's really what you've called me to do. If that's really the way you've gifted, the way my mind works and the way my hands can work and the way my feet can work and like all these things. And I just think, wow, Lord, like, what a relief that all I have to worry about is what you've given me right here and right now to take care of, and to do it the best way that I know how to do it. So when the time comes, if the time comes, and there's something else or something different or something more or whatever it could be, like, I'm not having to strive to chase after it. Like, if it's for me and you've appointed and anointed and given me the mantle of leadership for that task or whatever for that reason, you'll come to the field where I'm working and come and get me when it's good and time to do so. You know what I mean? And so many of us in our pride and we have idols of money and false sense of security, and so maybe we're chasing it for, you know, the need for control or the need for the financial increase or whatever it is. It's just like, I would challenge you to evaluate that in yourself. You know, like, really sit with that with the Lord and ask him, like, to help make that straight in your mind and in your spirit of the striving element that maybe you're struggling with right now. Like, you can't keep up, or you can't get there, or you've experienced disappointment because people have gotten the job over you or whatever. And it's just ask him, just ask him. And we might be in the wrong spot. You know what I mean? We might be operating out of a place of disobedience, which is why we're feeling so much discontentment of where we are, and why we feel stagnant in what we're doing, and why there's no passion, and why there's no vision, and why things feel dull. Come on now. Like, look at the fruit and then reevaluate, and then be okay with what God tells you to do next. That's a word for somebody. Yeah. You want to hear a quote?
I would love to hear a quote, Brooke.
Okay. It's probably one of the last things that I have on my notes to say, but it's really, really good. Okay. It says, you should be a great leader, and those who you lead should be even greater. You should want to be a great leader. That's biblical. You're an image bearer of God, and he's the greatest leader of all time, right? And so it's like, so you should want to be a good leader. And not only should you want to, you should do it well, right? Out of obedience. So it's like, okay, you should be a great leader. And then all of those who you lead should be even greater. And I think that also paints a really good picture and holds a really weighty, or it just holds a weightiness to some accountability, as a leader, and some perspective that I know not a lot of leaders operate with, But
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things to get used to is as your leadership grows. I mean, yes, your responsibilities grow, but then really like the tasks and the things that you have to do shrink in a way, because what you're leading, you have to empower those people underneath you. And so you can't, you have to start giving stuff away. You have to start handing stuff off. And if you can't do that, then you can't, do that. Like, you can't empower the people below you to do what God has given them to do. And so, and that's probably one of the hardest things, is just when you're used to, whether you want to call it the grunt work, the hands-on labor, the hands-onness of the tasks, the, being involved, being one of the people, whatever, that's doing the tasks. And then as your leadership increases and as your role increases, you're going to find as the people you lead, and that number physically or whatever increases, you will find that you have to give up a lot of that. Not because you're now the big shot that doesn't have to do the hard work, but because you've got to lead. And there are, as we've just spent plenty of time talking about, there's so many elements to that. And you're leading other people, and you have to set them up for success. And you want them, if your people can't be, if your goal is not for them to be as successful as they can be, then what are you leading? Like,
and why are you leading?
Where are you leading?
Yeah.
It's like, if your goal is not for everyone above you, or everyone below you, to be as successful as they possibly can, then then that's, I think we're missing the point. And so, I know for me, that's something that has been just from different stages of different leadership roles that I've had as I've gone, of like getting, you go from, I went from being over a young adult ministry and, high school and middle school, worship and different things like that. But I was a staff of one. Like I was my boss. I was my own boss, and I bossed around my own staff. Like, I was my staff. I was my boss. I was my secretary. I was like, it was me, and like, so it was just, and then I went from that to now I have a position where I have a staff of, like 10 plus people underneath me. And that's a hard shift when you go from yourself and you get used to, like, well, I need to do this, I need to do that too. Well, now there's a whole staff of people that you need to lead and empower and to lead well and set up. What do they need to be successful? What do I need to change? How I do a lot of things now in ways that I don't really like doing them. I don't even think it's the best way to do them, but it's what works for people underneath me. And it's what makes them successful. It's what they need. So that's what I do, and that's how I do it. And so, like, I think there has to be a willingness there to change. And there's a lot of things that I'm still working on to try to get better at that. That there's a lot of things that I still need to turn over more, and I need to give up more so that the people that I'm leading can be greater, because they need more. They need more platform. They need more time. They need more of my energy. They need more of, whatever it is. And so that's like a, and it's not something that I came up with, but that's, we've been doing. It's beginning of the year. I was just telling Brooke, like, before we started this, I was working on our performance reviews. So like we do, like most, I would assume, I mean, if you're a halfway high functioning organization, at least once a year, you should do some type of, evaluation of yourself and your team. And so we do these performance reviews, which is basically, we just look back and talk about all the areas that people on our team do well, and then, just areas that we see for growth, development, whatever it may be. And we talk about those as well, things coming up and that sort of thing. And I was working on finishing those beforehand, and one of the questions, and I didn't come up with this question, but one of the questions I always ask, because I think it's really up to them to answer honestly.
No, I already know what you're going to say.
Yeah, but one of the questions I ask is what can I do to be a better boss or to help you succeed more?
You always say, is there anything that you need from me?
Yeah. And if I feel like if you're not willing to ask that question, hear the answer, because sometimes it is, hey, I need you to communicate differently this way. Like the way that you're communicating doesn't work for me. Granted, what they ask may be a miserable thing for you, but that's not the point. The point is you've asked and they've said, this is what works for me communication-wise. Can you do that? Then absolutely. I will change the way that I communicate, because if that's what sets you up for success, then that's what I want to do. I want to set you up to be as productive and successful as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so
now, and granted, like, just to clarify, he's also not afraid to say, no, that's not what's best for the team.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to just be like, oh, yeah, whatever you want. It's great.
Yeah.
But there is such power to, like, if it's literally, and of course, Eric has, if you've known him for a minute, like, you literally know one of the many gifts he has is discernment. And he's genuinely able to, like, read in a conversation and see a need, like, if they're saying a need or whatever. And it's just like, okay, that is something that, like, we can do, we should do, that could be good and whatever. I'm like, but he also, like, has, again, the great discernment to, like, also say when it's like, well, the reason why it is this way is because of X, Y, and Z, and he's allowed to do that. And so, I mean, I don't know that you ever had to do either one or have to do that, but I'm just saying you're the type of leader who, because you lead so well, you are able to draw some lines in the sand if need be for your staff. And I think that's also why our team is so strong and honestly in such a great, like, season. And we have been for, the last few years, of course, under your leadership. And, you'll see people working, or if you just catch, like, somebody doing something, you're like, oh my gosh, like, this is really great. And you always ask, like, who's your boss? You know what I mean? Like, there's so many conversations where, I even think of, like, Ethan. He's, like, the head of our, like, maintenance staff. And, I'll see Caden or Aiden, doing whatever they're doing as part of the maintenance staff. And I'm just like, they do so well, or they're so humble and they're so kind. They're so efficient. They're so consistent. And literally, I just think, like, well, why wouldn't you be? Ethan's your boss, because Ethan is all of those things. And if you've known Ethan at all, you know what he's for. You know what he's for, and in such a deep way too, especially with his relationship with the Lord. And it's like when you know what somebody's for as a leader, and then you see the people they're leading, and it's just like, wow, like, kudos, like, good job, they're doing something right, like, that's good, and it feels good because it's like you're unified and you're doing it God's way and you're honoring appropriately and just all the things. And I mean, it's just a conversation that I really, really, really am glad we had, and I'm really excited to see and hear even, like, the ways that it challenges the people who are listening, and the ways that it can improve just the season that they're in of leadership, or even give them some courage to step into it, or even just gain some wisdom. Thank you, Holy Spirit, to do the best to be the best leaders that we can possibly be. But yeah, kudos and shout out to Alex Seeley for a lot of really thought-provoking material and concepts, and shout out to the good Lord and his word for just always being so good and right.
And I would encourage, so like if you listen to this and right now you're like, I'm the bottom of the totem pole. Like I could, I am David in the field tending sheep, and I feel, maybe looked over, whatever, or you're just getting started. You're young and you're just getting going. I would encourage you, one, to I think some of the greatest ways that you can build, whether it's, you want to call it respect, whatever, is one, whatever tasks you are given, you steward those to the very best of your ability. And you go as far and above and beyond in those tasks as you possibly can. If that looks like you're a maintenance guy and you're vacuuming floors and you're scrubbing toilets, then by golly, those are the cleanest toilets and
floors,
the floors that you actually move the furniture to get behind them. You do the little things that matter, that make a difference, and you do it to the very best of your ability. And then I would encourage you that if you are in a spot where you have, a boss, or, you are being led, that I would encourage you to, not in like a pushy way, but if you feel like that there is more that you can be doing, then I would encourage you to, in an honest and humble way, go to your boss and say, flip that question around and say, hey, with the current tasks I'm being given, like, I feel like I'm able to handle all those. One, am I handling those the way that you want me to? And two, what can I do to be a better employee to you? Like, how can I help you more? Is there something that I could pick up that would take that off your plate? Or is there something that I'm not doing that would help me to you need me to do? That would, that is there something that I could help you that you're trying to steward that maybe you need extra hands on? And they may say, no, keep doing what you're doing, but they know that you're open, or they may have a long list, or they may say, hey, actually, it would really help me if, I know that you've been doing this way, but could you actually change this? And then it goes back to the honoring and the unity thing. And you say, absolutely, I would love to do that. And I think that's, contentment doesn't mean that we don't still push, but contentment means that, I'm good where God has placed me, but I'm going to work like God has more for me, because he does. But a lot of times we've just got to, like anything, like many biblical stories, he's not going to give you more until you prove that you can manage what you've been given now. And so do your very best to manage what you've been given now, no matter how big or small that is. And you're going to look back 10, 15 years from now, and you're going to say, man, I'm really glad that I used to move that couch when I vacuumed, because now look where that set me up to be now.
And think about this too. Like, it ultimately comes down to you making the decision to trust God. Trust him. Trust his timing. Trust the positioning. Trust his, just all of it. Like, just trust him. And I say that because, Mercy, think about Jesus. Like, Jesus was born of a virgin, and the call on his life never changed. Never. He was a baby, an infant, but he could not be doing the ministry that he did in his 30s that we read about in the Bible until he went through a season of preparation and of growing and maturing. And it's like, God would be foolish to take a 5-year-old Jesus and set him out to prematurely do what he had designed and called, and set for 30-year-old Jesus to do, 33-year-old Jesus to do. so you just trust God and his timing, and that he knows what's best for us, and he knows what the work that needs to be done in us to set us up to do the best job that we can do for what he has for us later down the road. He's not foolish, and so just you don't be foolish now. You know what I mean? Like, you don't operate in foolishness and pride to think, well, I am ready and I whatever and I da 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 da. And no, none of that. Don't be ugly about it. Be patient. Just trust him. He's so good. And it's more times than not going to just fall right back on us and be a reflection of our posture and what pride we've yet to deal with and all of that. And so, I mean, of course, that goes back to the self-reflection element and all that we've talked about. Like, it's almost like one vicious cycle that as we grow, we never get out of.
Yeah.
Which is true,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, good stuff. We appreciate you listening today. So these are a lot of basically the conversations we have is things like this that are on the mind of one of us that get brought up, and then we'll just have an open conversation. As we mentioned at the very beginning, we would love for you to tune in on that conversation, to share your voice, to share your thoughts, your opinions. Maybe you have questions about something that we talked about. You can do all of those things. You can join in that conversation by emailing us at brooke@centralnow.com or eric@centralnow.com. Either of those emails will get one of us, and we would love to hear your feedback, your thoughts, your questions, your comments on this episode or any episode. If you are new to the podcast, we are going into this. You've come in to season 3. That means that there are 2 whole seasons that are out there for you to listen to and catch up on. So if you are listening for the first time, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Leave us a rating, leave us a review, and check out all the other episodes. We release every other Monday is when this podcast comes out, so we are bi-weekly. And, we've got a lot of content already out there that you can go back and listen to so you can get caught up on all things praise podcast. We're looking forward to an exciting year. If you know somebody who's in leadership, if you know somebody that could be encouraged or maybe challenged by this conversation, I would encourage you to share it with them, however you listen to your podcast, as this might be a good way to open up a conversation. Or maybe you are a leader and you've been looking for a way to have some conversation with your team. Send this podcast to your team. Have them listen to it and go have lunch or something and sit around and talk about it. And you can talk about all the things that you agree or disagree with us on. It's great. So we appreciate you listening. We're glad you did. Hope you go back, listen to previous episodes if you haven't, and be sure to tune in for all the new episodes that are coming your way in 2024. We're grateful to be here again. Our mission here is to be people that bring the praise, and so we sign off all the time by saying, let's be people in every way and every day that bring the praise. We'll see you next time.